What's up, dads, and welcome back to the Fit Dad Club podcast. My name is Jason, and wishing you all a very Merry Christmas to you and your families. Hope you're all doing incredibly well, and hopefully it's not too hot for you. I'm recording this about 4 or 5 days out from Christmas, so I don't know how it's going to be, but I hope you're all doing incredibly well. And I just wanted to give you a quick video today and a quick podcast today. If you didn't know, there's a video version on YouTube. It's not that exciting. It's usually just me and Trav talking. But what I wanted to talk about today was some tips and some easy wins when it comes to meals, especially around Christmas time, because I know that often the big problem for people around this time of year isn't necessarily the day itself, right? Like there's the alcohol portion, which does tend to add up, and sometimes the desserts, but more often than not, you're having cold meats and salads and maybe like some garlic bread or whatever. Like you're not going crazy in terms of what kind of foods you're eating. It's usually just the amount of foods and then the amount of drink that tends to do people in. So what I wanted to do was talk about, I guess, the days around Christmas and how you can best handle them, how you can create some meals for easy wins when it comes to those kind of areas, either using leftovers or just using some of the stuff that you might be able to buy and have around the place. So one of the big things when it comes to making your Christmas time easy, first of all, is setting your expectations, right? Knowing what are you actually going to be doing. If you're currently on a health and fitness journey and you've got a fat loss goal that you're aiming for, it's really important that you plan this time of year and you go, all right, well, when am I having my off days where I'm just going to have whatever I want and I'm just going to sort of, eat whatever with my family? Am I going to have just a tracked day where I track my calories, but I hit a slightly higher number, but I still keep a limit on it? Am I going to, be really strict for pretty much every day except for Christmas Day or Boxing Day or whatever the day is? What is your plan going to be? You need to go in with some kind of an idea of what you're doing, because otherwise, if you don't, you're just going to kind of do whatever, and then you might end up feeling like shit. Whereas if you plan and say, you know what, I'm intending to, let's say you're having one of my guys, he's having a week away with some of his mates that he hasn't seen for a while. So he's like, cool, for that week, I'm probably going to have, there might be 2 or 3 nights where we get, on the piss. On those days, I'm going to have a higher calorie intake, and I know that. So on the other days, I'm going to keep it relatively tight. That's his plan. It might not be 100% foolproof. He might not always stick to it, but that is the plan, and that gives you some kind of a structure to follow. And it all comes down to, well, what do you want the result to be going into, the new year in January and moving forward from there? If you're wanting to take this time as a bit of a break, if you're just getting started, you might want to approach it differently than other people. So just be aware of what your plan needs to be moving into this time of year, moving into the next couple of weeks. If you have some parties on, if you're having a holiday, what does that then look like for you? So just being aware of that. And the second part I wanted to talk about is some really easy win meals that you can start to incorporate, whether it's for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, either using leftovers or using some of the simple stuff that most people tend to have in the fridge to make sure that you're hitting your protein intake and you're not depriving yourself so that by the time you get to lunch or dinner, you've been, snacking on chips and chocolate and leftover shit all day long. So meal number 1 is just going to be the wrap, the roll, the sandwich, the really easy, simple thing that you can make using a leftover roast chicken, leftover ham, leftover roast beef, whatever cold meats you've got available for you. You can chuck that into a sandwich with a bunch of salad, right? Load up on the lean meat, right? It's a really good thing to load up on. Make sure you're not drowning it in full fat mayonnaise. That's probably going to be the thing that undoes most people in the sandwich. And there you go. That's a really simple, easy meal. You can have that for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It doesn't really matter as long as you're keeping enough vegetables in it and enough protein in it. It's a really solid one. Another one for breakfast is, again, simple. Eggs. You can cut up some of the lean meat you might have left over, fry it up in a pan with some eggs, 3 or 4 eggs scrambled. You can either have that over one bit of toast or you can do no toast if you're trying to go a little bit leaner. That's going to keep you full for hours. You can throw in some salad, again, some spinach, wilt that in there, some tomatoes, some mushrooms, really make a big meal out of it, and that'll keep you really full. Adding in that extra source of protein, whether it's, again, chicken or ham or whatever you've got left over, will be a really good, really easy way because of the fat, slows down digestion, the protein keeps you full. That's going to be a really good way to start your mornings and start your days, especially when you don't have structure. Biggest issue in this period of time when you don't have work, it's a lot of guys lose structure. So if you have your default being, cool, I'm going to have 100 grams, 200 grams of leftover ham plus 2 or 3 eggs on 1 slice of sourdough, that's a 500-600 calorie breakfast, probably a bit bigger, but it will keep you moving forward. You can reduce portions as you need to, but it's a great one as an idea. Next one, as far as simple recipes go, something like a taco bowl. So if you've got a lean ground beef, like an extra lean beef mince, which is 5% fat, or you can do chicken mince as well, you season it with some seasonings, whether it's just the default taco seasonings or whatever other stuff you tend to like. Go in with some tomato paste, go in with a little bit of stock or water, mix that up, cook that down, throw in some onions, throw in some capsicum. You've got essentially a really lean source of protein that you can add into a bunch of different things, right? You can use that over rice. You can do that, with noodles in a stir fry even. Like, you don't have to worry about, oh, it's not the right flavor. It'll still be fucking delicious. You can throw that in with some eggs, as I know Trav likes to do on some of his lower carb days. You can also throw it in a bowl with some salad. Go some lettuce, go some tomato, and you've got essentially like a taco bowl without actually having the taco shell, which is where, you're going to be adding a fair amount of the calories. So you've got the ability to have that almost like a little taco salad, throw in a couple of corn chips if you have the capacity to, but it's a really simple and easy weeknight meal you can throw together with just some mince. What else? Especially in the hot weather, I'm always a fan of overnight oats and high protein yogurt bowls. So for overnight oats, we've got a couple recipes on those. You get your oats, you get some, low fat milk or some almond milk or something like that. For overnight oats, you want to throw in usually a 1-to-1 ratio of oats to liquid. So you get your quick oats or your rolled oats, depending on what kind of texture you like, your low fat or your almond milk, and you can throw that in there with a little bit of Greek yogurt and protein powder. Mix that up. I like to put in some berries, sometimes some chia seeds as well to add with the texture. Leave that in the fridge overnight. You can do up in bigger batches as well. And you've got a really easy, really simple cold breakfast that you can have the next morning that works really well in summer because you can throw it together the night before, you have it in the morning, you're good to go. You can even keep it in the fridge for lunch if that's something that you want, a lighter lunch with a bit more fiber and a bit of protein in it too. So overnight oats are a really good option. High protein yogurt bowls are my go-to breakfast/lunch. I tend to have, my breakfast lunch around 10 to 11, somewhere around that range. And in that time, I'll go frozen berries, chuck it in the microwave for 45 seconds, and then they'll like defrost a little bit. I'll go for 250 grams of the high protein Greek yogurt, something like a low fat one, like a Chobani or even Woolworth's own brand tends to do well. YoPro, if you're not a really big fan of the plain Greek yogurt taste, YoPro tend to do some really good ones. Throw that in there with a cup of some kind of cereal, usually like a high fiber one, like an All Bran or an Uncle Toby's Plus or something like that. Milo cereal or Nutri-Grain if I want a little bit more protein. And then chuck in some protein powder. And that's what tends to flavor the whole thing. You mix that up and it's a nice cold, easy to assemble meal that you can have for breakfast. You can have for lunch. It's like a super stupid, simple snack that you can have. I highly, highly recommend that. It's been my breakfast for the better part of a couple of years now. The last one I want to talk about is a generic sort of stir fry. Now, I'm not going to say a stir fry as in like, oh, it's got to be a certain style of stir fry. And what I'm really meaning is you're throwing a couple of ingredients together over high heat and you're mixing them together rapidly to get a nice quick cook. So for example, what you could do, and this is what I tend to do, is I oven bake my chicken thighs if I'm going to use them in a stir fry, rather than cooking them directly in the pan, because number one, you have to chop them when they're raw and it becomes a little bit of a pain in the ass. If you don't have a sharp enough knife, it's not an easy process. I bake them fully, not chopped up at all in the oven, and then chop them once they're cooked, and then I throw that in a pan with some veggies and then some kind of carbohydrate, whether it is some beans, whether it's some noodles, whether it's some rice. Like, it doesn't really matter what it is, but you're just throwing shit together in a pan. Add a little bit of sauce, just jar sauce if you want to as well. If you want to be creative, you can mix a bit of a sauce together yourself. But oven baked meat, right? For me, usually chicken thighs or chicken breast with some form of carb. It could be beans, and you could go for more of a Mexican or a Spanish vibe. You could go for rice or noodles and have it be a little bit more Asian, and then some vegetables. It could be the microwave ones that you get. It could be some frozen ones that you chuck in the pan and heat up via that. That would be one of the probably easiest throw together dinners or lunches that you can do. And it's even easier if you've already got the leftover meat. You could be using ham, you could be using chicken, you could be using leftover beef, whatever. Don't let anything hold you back from just chopping some of that stuff up, chucking it into a pan with some sauce and some carbs, and there's your meal, right? You don't have to go too complicated with this kind of stuff. It's a couple of meal ideas, just some simple stuff that you can either utilize what you've already got, or you can throw together based on the leftovers that you'll have going forward into the Christmas period. But the biggest thing for me comes back to making a structure, making a plan for your period so that you know what you're going to be doing, when you're going to be having higher calorie days, when you're going to be having lower calorie days, when you're going to be able to schedule in some movement, when you're going to be able to just get active with your family, which is probably an underrated thing at this time of year. A lot of people think, oh, I've got to get to the gym. No, just go for a run around the park with your kids. Do something to keep you active during this time. And my biggest recommendation is to rest. I talked a couple episodes ago about the importance of sleep and how we're not really getting enough at the moment. And a lot of the guys I'm speaking to are working really long hours and their sleep is suffering because of it. Make sure you're getting as much rest as you can during this period, because the new year starts, it's going to be right back to it again. So rest up, enjoy your time with yourself, with your family, have a Merry Christmas, and I'll speak to you all in the new year.